What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. My apologies that I have not been posting any type of videos lately, but however, I have posted a video on Spider-Man 2 playing as Miles Morales Spider-Man, which I actually thoroughly enjoyed, but however, we are talking about Spider-Man 2 in general, so here we go. What I really truly think about this game, I really think that this game really does an amazing job with its character progression, much like from what the first one did when it comes to its story. I love the character progression with MJ, Peter Parker Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man, and others within the world of this game. I think that's really greatly important to know. That's where I feel like that's where single-player games are really a very strong focal point in gaming in general. And I thoroughly believe that because even though that there are gamers out there that are more specific multiplayer gamers, which is to be expected because we have the new Call of Duty coming out, I believe sometime today or tomorrow. But however, we are not talking about Call of Duty. I'm just trying to put a little bit of, not much of a comparison really. I'm just trying to get a little bit of news out there as well. So bear that in mind. Now, Spider-Man 2. What I truly love about this game, too, is that this game really initializes its web-slinging mechanics. It's that much quicker and faster, and I love that. You know, I believe that in the first Spider-Man game, it was very much utilized in its own type of direction.
I need to get one of those.
And I like the way how things are just very much more fluid in Spider-Man 2. And that's where I believe that this game really does a good job with its mechanics of combat, along with the web slinging and how you're able to utilize the web slinging into the combat and vice versa. And so I really think that in Spider-Man 2, it does it so much better, and it's faster, it's quicker. And what I have also noticed, especially with Spider-Man Peter Parker, opposite of that of Miles Morales Spider-Man, they are that much quicker in combat too. That's one thing I did actually notice while playing this game for the first initial, I would say 10 to 15 hours. I am actually currently about, I don't know if I'm currently really close to finishing this game, but I'm absolutely having a blast with this game. I think that this game, Spider-Man 2, is so much better than from the first one. Even though the first Spider-Man did actually end up being the overall arc of a trilogy that Insomniac Games is actually doing with Spider-Man, and I think that's where this game is really more on the lines of to doing that. You know, it's initializing that trilogy, and I'm really kind of curious of what Spider-Man 3 is going to bring to the table. Now, one thing I would really like to say here, though, too, I think Spider-Man 2 just, it's a much better story than from the first one, but, you know, that's where usually when it comes to the beginning of a franchise, much like the God of Wars or like, you know, any other kind of games that we've had on multi-platform, you know, we always have had that origin story. It's the same thing like Assassin's Creed. You know, the Assassin's Creed have their own unique type of origin story, and that's where I feel like that where Spider-Man 2 is involved, that this game really does a good job of utilizing that origin story amongst from, you know, like the first Spider-Man from Insomniac Games and then Spider-Man 2 here on the PlayStation 5. Now, another thing I would really like to put in here, though, too, I think Spider-Man 2 just does it does an amazing job at all fronts, in my personal opinion, because that's where I feel like that this game really does something very fast and of the majority of this game. With, you know, there are some stealth elements within this game, of course, you know, and I previously mentioned this in a previous video about Assassin's Creed Mirage, that there are RPG elements within this game. You know, bear that in mind too, because I did mention about that in my Mirage video, and I'm still going to stand by that. Most of these games that we're getting nowadays, whether if they are single-player games in general, they're not always going to be 100% pure RPG, but they will have RPG elements. And that's where I feel like that this game, it does a good job with it, though, too, in my personal opinion, because that's where I feel like the progression with the RPG elements, you know, like, you know, leveling up your character, leveling up Spider-Man, you know, leveling up Miles Morales, and utilizing those types of skills that you're able to utilize within Miles Morales and Peter Parker, doing certain types of combat scenarios. And that's where I feel like that's really important to know, and especially when it comes to Spider-Man 2, it just does it absolutely amazingly. I really think that this game really utilizes its full potential of the power of the PS5, and it does it magnanimously. And I love the fact that how this backdrop of New York is much more It's a little bit more vast, in my personal opinion, from the first one, but the first one did have that majority of its vastness open world aesthetic as well. And that's where I feel like that Spider-Man 2 greatly utilizes that much bigger to its own from its original counterpart from the PS4. And then they actually ended up making a Spider-Man Game of the Year edition remastered for the PlayStation 5 along with its current DLC as well. I actually ended up picking up the deluxe edition for Spider-Man 2 because I do believe that at some point in probably, if not this year, hopefully next year, we will be getting some DLC for this game. But however, we're just going to have to wait and see. But overall, this is my opener here. So what I really want to do here as well is that I really think Spider-Man 2 is, like I said, it's absolutely amazing. I love its combat. I love everything of what this game really initializes it to be, and it does it amazingly well. I really think that when it comes to the story in this game, it's so much better than from the first one, because that's where I said, you know, when it came from the first one, it had that build story arc up from Miles Morales Spider-Man or Peter Parker Spider-Man. And that's where it does a really good job. But I really do believe that when it comes to Insomniac games, making these Spider-Man games, I do feel like that these games do kind of have a part in the Spider-Verse, in my personal opinion. You know, because we have had Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, or what, I forgot what it was called, but it was the second one in the animated movie series, and it was fantastic. I absolutely loved that film. I thought it was very well done. I love the stories in that movie, and I kind of see some of that in this game as well a little bit. You know, other than the fact that even though that we might not have some hints of detail when it comes to the Spider-Verse in Spider-Man 2. But I do believe that there could be some sort of type of arc coming into Spider-Man 2, or towards the end, or maybe the beginning of Spider-Man 3, if we ever get that in the next couple of years from Insomniac. And I think that's where this game is really going to do something fairly unique from what we actually initially got from the first one. But however, I love the way how things are just very utilized to its own circumstantial type of combat systems. I love the way how Peter Parker Spider-Man and Miles Morales Spider-Man really coincide along with its fighting mechanics and how to utilize that, you know, being able to do certain types of finishers, and I love that. I think that's great. I love that fluidity combat, and I think it does it flawlessly and perfectly, in my personal opinion. But however, one thing I will say is that this game is actually a little bit harder than from the first one, even though the first one did provide a little bit of a challenge. But when it comes to Spider-Man 2, this game greatly improves the challenge overall, and that's one of the things I really thoroughly appreciate when it comes to games like this in general, opposite that of the Batman Arkham series. But that's where I feel like that even though the Spider-Man games that we've had, Spider-Man 2 or the first one that we've had past few years ago, these do kind of have that type of Arkham combat series to style when it comes to its combat, and I like that. I think that's fascinating. So it really harkens back to that, and I really like that mechanic, because it's like, I really think that when it comes to Spider-Man 3, if and when we ever get that game, I really think that they'll eventually revamp that combat system and making it much more greater and utilize it to a much better certain type of degree, how to, you know, do different types of scenarios within the combat, you know, much like what Spider-Man 2 does, and how it's awesome. Now, one thing I really like to put in here, too, as well, is that I love the fact how they utilize with the Venom suit in this game, along with Harry Osborn. And so, like I said, I am getting pretty close to to finishing this game. I think. I'm not exactly sure. But I am having an absolute blast with this game. I think this is one of the best Spider-Man games I've ever played, opposite of that of the first one. But overall, I still need to put my final impressions out there once I finish this game in general. So I think that's another thing. That's why I think that this one really does an amazing job with its combat aesthetic and its systems and mechanics, and it just greatly shows that where this game is really going to point into Spider-Man 3, if and whenever we get that in the next few years. But however, I think when it comes to Spider-Man 2, I love the way how Venom looks right now. I haven't really, even though we've had, you know, Agent Venom with Harry Osborn, but, you know, I haven't really gotten into the full general aesthetic of Venom as a whole in this game yet. And I can't wait to know what it actually looks like, because I have not been able to... I was not willing to spoil myself with this game, because I want to get this game and play this game on my own and see what this game is really going to entail when it comes to Venom. Because Venom is actually one of my favorite villains in the Spider-Man universe, in my personal opinion. But however, the Green Goblin has always been another one of my favorites as well. And that's one thing I would really like to see, maybe in the not too distant future, if we were able to get another Green Goblin, much like from what Norman Osborn's Green Goblin was. But that would have been cool though too. But however, I can see why they didn't do that, is because they wanted to do something different from what we initially got from the animated films, or from that of, you know, the live action. You know, like the Tobey Maguire ones, the Hollands, and Andrew Garfield's. I thought those movies were fantastic. I absolutely loved them to their own equal superiority of its own type of way. But overall, I just think that when it comes to Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation 5, this game definitely holds up to the utmost. And I greatly appreciate this game, what it's really doing, what it really entails too. Now, one thing I would really like to really put in here is that I came to the conclusion before I stopped playing this game last night for now, because I actually had to go to bed because I had to get up this morning and go to work. But however, this game it's pretty much what the first one did. This game really does an amazing job when it comes to family and friends and family specifically, because this game it's one of the reasons why I thoroughly appreciate video games in general, or anything in general in life. And, you know, it just goes to show you that when it comes to Harry Osborn and Mary Jane and Miles Morales and Peter Parker, and amongst other type of key characters in this game really shows you that of how important friends and family is to a person, even if it's in video game format or in real life. I really do, because that's where I feel like that this game really does an amazing job of telling that type of story. And I've never really been able to understand that in games in general. You know, much like, you know, God of War 2018 or God of War Ragnarok. But however, I just think that, you know, those games were absolutely amazing as well. You know, it was not just about Kratos and, you know, getting his revenge on the gods. But in Ragnarok, though, that game was not just based off of Kratos. It was more based off of his son Atreus, and how family is the most important thing, and he wants to protect his son Atreus from other beings in that game. And that's where I felt like that when it comes to Spider-Man 2, I think Spider-Man 2 does an amazing job in that type of front, in my personal opinion, because it's good to know that there are some family and friendship, and it's always been that way in most aspects in real life or in some type of video game format, to where family and friends is always a good thing to have, because it's fascinating that we're seeing that in games nowadays, especially when it comes to single-player games, much like Spider-Man or much like God of War. And that's where I feel like that I think Spider-Man 2 just does an amazing job in that type of category as well. But what I really want to get into, to the final part here, is that if you really like this type of content, please feel free to put any comments or questions in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to reply back if and whenever possible. But what I will say here in the final part here is that I am greatly appreciated for what I've been doing, and for the amount of likes I've been getting and the viewership. And you guys have been so awesome, and I greatly appreciate what you've been achieving for me, and vice versa. So I thank you for everything and what you've been doing on my channel as well. So any future comments or questions, feel free, guys. Have a good one. Peace.